in section 11.4 applications involving quadratic equations. This is going to be a brief section for us. What we want to look at in this section is how can we apply the concepts of solving quadratic equations with some of the applications that you may come across. So we are in section 11.4, and again this is the title of the section, applications involving quadratic equations. Almost all of our applications are going to be they're going to involve formulas such as the one you see in this example. But we're going to go to page 723 actually to take a look at the homework problems that we're going to be focusing on. In section 11.4, here are the exercises in this section. And our focus is primarily on numbers 5 through 14 as they're stated on the homework sheet. So I'm going to work problems that are very similar to the ones on your homework problems. From this section, we're going to look at exercise number 6. We're going to look at exercise number 12. And we're going to look at exercise number 14. So here I have those problems listed already. In exercise number 6, initially this was the equation, which is the formula a equals 6 times s squared. And notice I've highlighted the variable s, the variable that the book says we want to solve for. We want to solve for variable s. So typically what happens is that the variable that we want to solve for, in this case s, we're going to take that to be the unknown, and if there are any other variables in this equation or in the formulas, we're going to treat them as if they are constants. So the goal is to isolate the variable we want to solve for, in this case s. So what I did next step is I divided both sides of this equation by 6. A divided by 6 equal s squared. And from that we got s equal to plus or minus the square root of a over 6. Remember, the principle of the square roots tells us we have to have plus or minus. Now, because in applications oftentimes negative answers are meaningless, so on our own we're just going to discard them. We're going to get rid of them. And from this I just dropped the negative and kept the positive square root here, and that's going to be our final solution for this one. And there you go. So we're going to call this our final solution. So we were able to solve for s. In exercise number 12, we are given r is equal to 2 times the square root of 5l. Now for this exercise we want to solve for l. So what I did is I divided both sides by 2, and that's where I went from that step to the next step, divide both sides by 2 to isolate the radical. And then what I did next, I squared both sides of this equation. So the left side squared r becomes r squared, 2 squared becomes 4. And on the right side, when you square both sides, you're going to lose the radical sign. Okay, so that's what I did in this one. And squaring both sides, again, that's what I'm going to get is the following. Let me just put the detail here. I have r over 2 squared and then square root of 5l squared. And that will be my next step. Next step, I actually have r squared over 4 equals 5l. And then we're going to divide both sides by 5. And when you divide both sides by 5, 5 actually multiplies by 4 down here. It gives you 20. Or you can also think of it as multiplying both sides by 1/5 times 1/5. And the 5's cross out, and of course you have 4 times 5, which gives you this 20 down here. That's where I get the 20 from. And we have indeed solved for L, number 12. In exercise number 14, here's the equation, just to kind of scroll it a little bit at a time. And here we have a squared plus b squared plus c squared equal d squared. We want to solve that for c. So I'm going to keep c squared on one side and move a and b squared each to the other side. and this is what's going to happen. And of course, because we move a squared on the other side, it becomes negative, and b becomes negative also. Next step, we're going to take the square root of both sides, and when we take the square root of both sides, there you go. That's going to be the answer to the problem, and we managed to solve it for C. Again, some basic examples in this section. Each of these problems involved a quadratic expression, which we were able to solve primarily by using the square root property. So hopefully you all followed this, and we're done with this section.